Ready? Okay, might turn your mics on. Welcome to the Deer Creek School Board of Education business meeting. It's March 8th, 2021, 6 p.m. In accordance with policy BDA, BDA-R, KD, and KDR, the superintendent has established the following procedures for public participation at the regular board meetings. In an effort to conduct school business and complete the scheduled agenda, discussion and comments from the public shall be limited to statements from those individuals who have properly registered to speak during the public speaking portion of the meeting and shall be limited to a total time of 30 minutes. Each person participating in the public speaking portion of the meeting will limit their comments to 5 minutes or less. Groups wishing to speak on the same side of the same topic will be asked to choose a spokesperson. The board reserves the right to limit the time for comments regarding any particular issue and/or the number of speakers to be allowed with respect to the particular issue. Please review the following expectations for in-person attendance. Do we read that? The food and...
Yes.
Okay. Food and drink are not allowed in the auditorium. Masks are to be worn firmly covering the nose and mouth. Seating is only available in physically distanced marked areas. Speaking, shouting out of turn during the business meeting is strictly prohibited. Should you choose not to follow the audience expectations, you will be asked to leave. When we reach capacity for physical distancing, patrons may view the following via live stream link. Public view and access is on youtube.deercreekschools.org. Clerk, please call the roll. Call to order.
Keene. Neves.
Here.
Lay here. Barnes.
Here.
Bamford.
Here.
4 present, 1 absent. The time is 6:06 p.m.
Okay. We'll go to consideration of and vote of consent agenda. All the following items which concern reports and items of a routine nature normally approved at board meetings will be approved by one vote unless any board member desires to have a separate vote on any or all of these items. The consent agenda consists of the discussion, consideration, and approval of the following items as listed, 1 through 13. Does anybody want to pull anything out to discuss separately? Okay. Have a motion?
Move for approval.
Second. Barnes.
Yes.
Bamford.
Yes.
Neves.
Yes.
Lay, yes. Motion carries 4-0.
Okay. Now we'll go to Superintendent Renette Tippin's report.
Okay, we're going to start off with Dr. James Rose. I'm looking up there and I see him. He will be on the screen, or Dr. Rose, if you would like to come in, you could come in. But we'd like to have him share on the ESY summer program.
On his way.
I think he's coming on in to do that presentation. Thank you, Dr. Rose. We have a microphone over here. This is being back in the auditorium or the boardroom. It's a little bit of a change, and again with spacing, a little bit new to get used to. But thank you, Dr. Rose, for coming on in.
I'm much better live anyway. ESY. ESY is going to look just like it has in the past, not the recent past, like last summer. It's going to be 6 weeks, 3 weeks in June, 3 weeks in July. It focuses on really targeting 3 groups of students, types of students. Our early childhood students who are acquiring some new skills, and we're fearful that they might lose those skills if we don't target them during the summer months. The other group are the more higher needs kids who require lots and lots of supports, not just cognitive or academic, but also physical supports, where they require lots of, I guess our are groups of kids who have physical needs. They have to be stretched. They have to be in standers. They have to have supports from our OT and our PT, and even some of our nursing services, which is a little new this year. I'm still working out the details about that. And then, of course, our transition kids, our kids at the high school who have been employed during the school year. And if we don't have job coaches going out there with them during the summer months, then they can't be employed during the summer months. And so what it looks like is they have employment, then they lose employment, and then they regain employment during the school year, then they lose employment, and that just doesn't, it not only doesn't look good on their resume, but it also is disruptive in the routine, developing of the routine of learning jobs and job skills. The other thing that we've added this year, which is a little different, is because of COVID, we have a lot of students with milder disabilities who just haven't been able to attend school regularly. And so we have currently started providing tutoring services after hours so that our students with milder disabilities who've just fallen by the wayside because of COVID, they really need those extra support. So right now we have about 10 certified teachers that are providing after-hour tutoring services to about 20 kids. But I've opened that up, and I'm hopeful that we'll receive more supports from teachers with regard to providing tutoring services for our students with special needs. That is actually funded through a special education COVID fund, which I designated about, I think it was like $24,000 so that we can provide those tutoring services through the end of June. And then we also use some of that money to provide counseling support services to our students and our staff members. That's my ESY report. Any questions?
Thorough as always.
All right. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next on our list, Josh Pierce will be sharing a technology report.
Okay, I'm going to adjust a little bit. Okay, so I knock everything over. So it's been a year since I gave a technology report to the board, almost right at. It was March 9th of last year. It seems like a lifetime ago. I don't even remember that happening, in all honesty, and everything else that's happened in between. But it's been a full year, as you can imagine. So obviously, based on impacts of COVID and what we've run into and the transitions we've seen across everything in this school year, beginning in about late May, early June of 2020, we'd recognized the need to add additional devices because we knew our school year would not look the same. So since about June 1st of 2020, we've been actively working on student device deployment, collecting devices, ordering, supplying, determining how we provide, where we provide, what we can do. And it's been a full, challenging objective to complete. What we identified early in our process was that because of the global supply chain impacts of production, the fact that effectively the world shut down for 3 months, parts weren't produced to be assembled into devices to be shipped to America to even be at a point that we could acquire them in June. We'd begun our deployments early in June after we identified what was coming. I finally received that order of equipment in December. It was about 1,200 to 1,300 devices that I had ordered at the beginning of June. And like I said, they finally showed up right before Christmas break in December. We were successfully able to obtain 1,000 devices of the 3,000 we needed for student one-to-one 7 through 12 by the start of school in August. So we had a pretty significant challenge in who do we provide equipment to, how do we manage that gap. So we began a survey process to try to identify needs, to bridge the gap for our students. And as you may or may not remember in all of this, we surveyed our students. We'd prioritized those students based on their their description of need, and we were able to meet all of our, what we'd identified as our phase 1 and a phase 2 need for equipment, pre-K through 12, by September. We had deployed equipment to all of those students who said they had absolutely nothing, or they had equipment that wouldn't be able to perform what we needed to meet the remote school year demands this year. So we deployed that in a myriad of different fashions. We deployed direct in-person equipment out of our libraries by our media specialists for our students. We did car line deployments at our elementary sites. We turned the front of the IT building into a drive-through service, and I ran a drive-through window on the front of our building. And so everything that we could do to safely and securely get equipment to our students. And really, considering all of the significant challenges, we really were pretty successful in being able to get our equipment out there. But we did continue to have issues with acquisition and the equipment coming in. As of today, we have deployed about 3,500 devices to our students. So that is over half of our students have a device that's been issued directly to them. And we've supplemented a lot of the rest of those students, really the rest of them, the majority of the rest of them, with in-person devices in our classrooms. We've flooded additional equipment into our buildings. We've deployed about 100 devices to every one of our sites to focus on testing, really within this last, since the start of return from school in winter break. So we really, with all of that said, and all our various forms and functions, we have acquired enough equipment through our various means that we will be able to fully deploy one-to-one to our students next year. And so that is our intent. We are moving forward with that goal. We have the equipment. We have a solid plan. We have a summer of work ahead of us to get to that point, to make sure that our equipment is in good condition and it's prepared and ready for our students. But start of school next year, we will have a device in every student's hand.
So you're going to have another drive-through to get all the computers and stuff back at the end of this school year?
So actually, if we have to, we will. But we should be able to reclaim most of that equipment through our, it's a lot of people to run through the front of my building.
Yeah.
But we should be able to reclaim most of that through the library process already.
Maybe we need to talk to Chick-fil-A. They're pretty good at it.
I have been to Chick-fil-A enough times that I've got a pretty solid handle on what that process looks like. But we should be able to use our library and our media specialists to collect a lot of that equipment, to bring it back in. And then over the summer, like I said, we'll kind of qualify it, condition it, make sure that we deploy the best of the best to our students. But we really should be in good shape for next year.
So then for starting next year, you're saying all the students will have a device?
Our intent for next year is to provide a device for every one of our students.
Great.
And so what we have seen firsthand is the best way to ensure an adequate and equitable learning environment for our students is to make sure that we get them a device.
Perfect.
And so we know it. It is long-term. There's a lot of financial impact that goes along with that, but we fully recognize that that's what we need to be doing for our students to meet their needs.
Good.
So.
Have we had any feedback from the students or families that may have connection issues or internet usage issues? And if so, are we able to help them with that?
We were able to secure a limited amount of equipment to help in some of those cases. We've prioritized our students who qualify as economically disadvantaged based on our existing systems, and we've tried to help bridge the gap. In some of those cases, based on where they're located, the equipment that we can get won't provide much signal, just unfortunately geographically where we are. But we definitely recognize, especially for our economically disadvantaged students, that there's a need. So
Great, thank
we've
you.
bridged some of that, and we are working to bridge more.
Thank you for doing that. That's great.
Okay, and so that obviously has been the big one. That's been pretty much the all-consuming mission for most of the year. Another kind of significant change that we saw this year, right at the beginning of the school year, my IT director was offered another position with another school district. It was an incredible opportunity for him and really a great addition for the other school district. It's a heartbreaking and soul-crushing time for us to transition our employees, but he really has done great. We wish him the best of luck. I'm sure he's listening to this. But with saying that did give us an opportunity to kind of reevaluate where our personnel are located, what we're focused on, and how do we best support the needs of the district. So hopefully with successful passage of the recommendations to hire this evening, we are bringing on a position focused on our systems engineering, which is all of our infrastructure and server-side systems. We were able to do some internal reassignment of responsibilities and create a focus on our network infrastructure. So between these two positions, it really will cover all of the back end of our systems. We've created a security and access control specialist. So all of our cameras, all of our access control doors, all of the things that help provide safety and security for our students. We have someone focused on that now. And we've seen, in my opinion, a considerable improvement just in reliability and quality and additions to security in those areas. And then we've kind of reassigned, we're also looking to add an assistant and really a tier 1 help desk position, someone focused on communication, receiving phone calls. The biggest failing of any IT department, anywhere I've ever been, is communication. We have the best intents, and unfortunately, when everything kind of catches on fire, we don't give it the focus we should. So we know that, and we are making sure that we focus on communication going forward. So it really will put us in a great place for next year, I feel. And then what seems yet again like a lifetime ago, we opened the 4th, 5th building with new technology. We implemented new wireless and wired infrastructure in the building. And it really has, the intent has been kind of a pilot for what we would do for the rest of the district. And we've been really satisfied with the results. We went with kind of a domestic company, Aruba. It's HP Aruba, Hewlett Packard. So a large presence, a long-term presence. They're someone who we know we can work with, and these investments will maintain long term. And it, from what we've seen at the 4th, 5th center, we know we'll be able to leverage and make some improvements across the rest of the district. The equipment that we have in place is 4, nearing 5 years old, so it's time to start focusing on replacement and upgrade, but we want to do that in a way that's cost effective and feasible as we kind of phase that rollout of equipment out. So. And then last, what we have kind of coming up for summer, we have with our relocation of equipment and the addition of Chromebooks and iPads for our students, we've been able to reclaim some of the MacBook Airs that we have in other places. And it really provides us a perfect opportunity to upgrade our teacher equipment. We've been focused on that kind of a 5-year implementation of refreshing that equipment. This will let us speed that up much quicker and get our teachers in a much better situation, especially considering how much we are teaching online, and that will continue. It's critical that we have reliable devices for all of our teachers. So through this summer, we'll be able to refresh all of that equipment. So yet again, for start of school next year, we'll really be in a good spot. And then Grove Valley. In Grove Valley, we'll see a refresh similar to what we did with Freyvale and Deer Creek Elementary. So as part of that, classroom technology and interactive devices and our intercom system will be able to refresh a lot of that this summer. So then really it's Rose Union after that. So I think those are the big ones. Do you have any questions or thoughts?
Just don't forget the scorer's table at the PAC.
What's that? Oh,
The scorer's table at the PAC, you upgraded so you have sound.
I'm gonna keep hitting the podium. I have a longer cable in my office. It just has not made it over there. I'll get it taken care of. So, all right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Josh, good job.
Thank you, Josh. Appreciate that report. For technology, for all of our curriculum and all of those things, this has been an integral part. And my favorite, I think we still should have had the photograph when the devices finally came in. It's my favorite photograph for technology for this year, that's for sure, because the gentleman that just spoke is laying over hugging all the devices as they came in. Nothing like a pandemic and not being able to get devices out of manufacturing. So it's been quite a ride this year. We still have a lot of devices that we are ordering at this time in order to be one-to-one, which has definitely made a huge budget impact. He alluded to that. One of the things about going one-to-one with devices is every 4 years you've got to rotate in 25% of your devices. That's about the life of those devices, especially working with the programs. At the same time, you've got to add for growth, and a typical year of growth for us is 300 to 400 students. And then you also have to allow for breakage and what you need for your staff. So this is a huge undertaking, a huge financial undertaking, and I'm going to go into a couple of reports that that's going to apply to. So I wanted to talk about that, and some of the decisions that we're making at sites on other equipment is affected by the fact that we have chosen, our original plan was to be 1 to 2 last year, and we were close, we were getting there and had a really great plan, but life has changed. 1-to-1 is going to be critical because we will always have those students that are remote and we'll have students that are working virtually. So we had to do a great big flip and change of what does that look like for Deer Creek schools. So first of all, I want to talk just to the board a moment about the ESSER funding that just was received, and actually we haven't received it, we've received notification from the Oklahoma State Department of Education. And so I have a big thank you list. You're going to see me looking at the screen here because I don't want to miss anyone and have a big fear that I will, even with having put some thought to this. So pardon the fact that I'm going to look at this and try to really move verbatim down this. Thank you to the Deer Creek Board of Education, the Deer Creek Parent Legislative Action Group, the PLAC group, the Deer Creek Administrative Team, the Deer Creek ACT, and to all Deer Creek staff. They have tirelessly carried Deer Creek's data and concerns to the state and nation's capitals and to the Oklahoma State Department of Education. A special thank you goes to our CFO, James Edwards, for his tireless work and ability to pull state data and put it into graphs and pictures, better illustrating the inadequacy and the inequity that occurs currently in Oklahoma public school funding. He's done a tremendous job, and I would be remiss if I did not point that out. He has gifts with pulling spreadsheets and sorting and then turning them into pictures that are far better to understand, and it's made our story much more clear this year. I also want to say a thank you to Catherine Burks, who no matter what time of day or night, often weekends, helps me proofread letters and format email letters to our Oklahoma State Department of Education, legislators, and others, informing them of the issues at hand. Often the timing of when votes are going to occur does not match with the timing of her work hours, and she's done an incredible job of helping me get things out in a timely fashion when they really needed to be out. I have a lot of thank yous. Thank you to the Oklahoma State School Board Association, the Cooperative Council of School Administrators, and the United Suburban Schools Association. They advocated on behalf of all the schools, their students, and their families who were and are affected by the health pandemic and yet had not received the resources needed to address the concerns of academics, safety, and mental health. I want to thank our legislators, Senator Greg Treat, Senator Chuck Hull, former Senator, now U.S. Congresswoman Stephanie Bice, Senator Adam Pugh, Representative Nicole Miller, Representative Gary Mize, Representative Denise Hayter, Representative Ryan Martinez, Representative and former Deer Creek teacher Carrie Hicks, U.S. Senator James Langford. They continue to study, listen, and learn about the challenges that we have faced and continue to face as Deer Creek schools. This year alone, due to COVID-19, atypical growth, low growth, and chargeables from ad valorem collected the previous year, Deer Creek began the year with $1.8 million drop in expected general fund revenue. That's the fund that pays for teachers' salaries, all salaries, supplies, materials, utilities, and the general running of a school. Because the COVID ESSER funds in the first 2 rounds have been put through by the feds, the Title I formula, Deer Creek was next to last in per pupil funding in supplemental funding from COVID ESSER funds. In round 1, Deer Creek schools received $29 per student at a time we needed to buy devices, buy things to sanitize our buildings, and a multitude of other things related to COVID. The highest amount given per pupil, and it's important always to bring the amount received in school districts back to per pupil, the highest amount was $799 per pupil. Again, Deer Creek received $29 per pupil. One school was lower and received $21 per pupil. That was Oakdale. In round 2, in the federal distribution of ESSER funds, they quadrupled the inequities. Deer Creek schools received $119 per student, with the same highest receiving school receiving $3,196 per student. The range was $84 to $3,196 in round 2. In round 1, because there was a lot of concern of no funding to a lot of school districts, a grant opportunity was offered by the Oklahoma State Department of Education with a maximum value of $300,000. Thanks to the advocacy of legislators, administrators, the Deer Creek Board of Education, a large number of patrons, and study of the data by the Oklahoma State Department of Education, Deer Creek received the Oklahoma State Department of Education grant. This grant helped with some of the Canvas expenses, but was primarily used to provide approximately 800 devices to our students. That's some of those that got on order and back order, by the way, and that we got to wait for a little while on. But it provided about 800 devices to students who were working remotely and in school. With an enrollment of 7,000 students, it didn't solve our technology problems, but it certainly was a huge help. Again, I would be remiss if I did not share Representative Miller's writing of many letters advocating on behalf of Deer Creek schools for this supplemental Round 1 funding grant. Representative Miller has also worked hard setting up meetings with state leaders, leading discussions on expanding certification options available to teachers with advanced degrees in their area of teaching, with a very special focus on special education. Because we had teachers that this was affecting. Her bill was to help teacher certification passed. This year, she has a bill to expand opportunities for teachers with advanced degrees in the same area that they would teach. So again, this bill is a very important bill to us, especially in the area of special education, where most of them have a master's degree in the work that they would do. Representative Miller continues to work to open doors for communication and dialogue on adequacy and equity in funding, as well as expanding certification opportunities for teachers. In round 1, the governor was given the larger remaining dollars to distribute as he and his team saw fit. In round 2 of the ESSER funds, the Oklahoma State Department of Education received the larger balance of funds to distribute as they deem appropriate. What you have read and heard about this past week is the Oklahoma State Department's decision to help and support schools with the least amount of COVID and ESSER funding. In an effort to help them with expenses for health pandemic, stabilizing budgets that pay for teacher supplies, materials, technology, counseling, remediation, and mental health initiatives, as well as operations, supplies, and materials to keep everyone safe. Again, it sounds like a lot of money. Deer Creek will receive close to $3 million. It is 25% of what the highest group received and half of the state average. So even though it sounds like a lot, the state average is closer to $1,100. We're in the range of close to $600. So understand that in perspective, yes, it's going to make a world of difference, but it is not the large quantity that one might think with all of the expenses that we've had to incur. These things will go forward into next year, especially in the area of funding. And so fortunately, it's an amount of money that we can spread over the 2 years to support our funding and keep everything balanced. Deer Creek is truly grateful to State Superintendent Joy Hoffmeister and her leadership team for studying this great financial need of Deer Creek and many other Oklahoma schools. Everyone receiving less than $550 per student had that amount raised to make sure that they had received that 50% of the state average. I'm sorry. Okay. But anyway, the Oklahoma State Department of Education is addressing the financial strain faced by Oklahoma school districts, their students, and their families receiving an ESSER dollar amount less than $550 per pupil. These dollars will address and relieve the huge burden of general fund loss, paying for salaries, supplies, materials, technology that we must continue to purchase. It will keep class sizes down. It will address staffing concerns and COVID expenses over this year and next. So when people are asking what's it going to do, it's going to make all of those budgets balance. It's going to help us keep our teachers and our class sizes where we want them to be. It's going to provide for some remediation and certainly continued cleaning supplies, et cetera. Again, I want to thank all who have had an important role in studying Deer Creek's story. Thank you to those who have heard the Deer Creek School need and provided much needed revenue. So that's my report on the ESSER funds that we'll be receiving. I'll be happy to answer any questions, but I would also like to do just a little bit on the upcoming bond initiative after that. So at this time, do you have questions over the ESSER funds?
I just want to say thank you to Renette. In addition to all the people whom you just mentioned, you were clearly instrumental in getting this done and educating people on where we are and the struggles that we face financially.
Absolutely.
So
Thank you.
I do appreciate you.
Thank you. We do have a steady communication between a lot of those, but it's been a good one. It's a very good one, and our legislators in particular, as well as the State Department, have a very clear understanding. And again, I give a lot of credit to James' ability to take their data and put it into pictures to make that more clear. So it's a joint effort, and he too, sometimes it's not the right time of day and night when Renette decides that we need to have a letter. So I have to give him a tremendous amount of credit. The other thing that I would like to report on a little bit is the process for a bond initiative. I want to go back through how we worked through it last year and how we will do it this year. First of all, the first thing that we do is form a committee. And on that committee will be 2 board members, the maximum allowed when not holding a bond issue. I mean, when not holding a board meeting. There will be people from our administrative team. There will be a principal from at least 3 levels, elementary, middle, and high. So I don't know who those people are yet, but we're working on lists of possibilities. There will be teachers from each of those 3 levels that will represent that. There will be 1 to 2 parents from every school. And we look at the PTOs and people that are involved in school, but we also look at a variety of other things. So we're building that now. There will be community members, and we have several parents that are involved in real estate, and so we will be including 2 to 3 of those on this committee as well. There will be people from the PTO, the Deer Creek Plaque, the Deer Creek ACT, Deer Creek Foundation will have a couple of people as well. So we will probably be working with a committee of 35 to 45 people. That committee will hear the overview of how much money we can acquire and the big dream list. We start with everything that everybody thinks Deer Creek needs. But we bring in Jordan Smith to talk about actual dollars that we'll have, and then we bring in construction management and the architects because they are very critical to the process. As we dream these projects, they begin to talk about and plan for us and help us with what does that cost for Deer Creek Schools if we did this? What does it cost if we did this? As in last time, the toughest factor is going to be the quantity of funds we have and the big list of projects. It always narrows down fairly quickly. But here's kind of the timeline for that. In March and April, Jordan Smith gives us the list of money that we think we can acquire, which is somewhere around $90 million. That's going to net in the $60+ million for projects. We do designate, we have in this bond issue, and there's a need for Deer Creek because our general fund is the lowest funded school in the state of Oklahoma per pupil. You hear that a lot. So we try to build in money for operations, technology, a small amount, tech on all of these. It's not big, but it helps. Textbooks and technology. So technology buses, I said technology twice. Technology buses, textbooks, and operations. So that comes off the top and is set aside so that we continue to function. Prior to us doing that, a lot of things we fixed, they were just Band-Aid fixes because we couldn't afford to fix things and do things. The same thing for technology. Their budget was very small. So, and for buses, a new bus, actually a used bus is somewhere around $100,000. We tend to buy ours from Career Tech sales. They don't run as many, so I'm not sure how long that will last. But that lets us get a great bus with very few miles and saves us some money there. Currently, we buy 2 to 3 buses per year and occasionally get to change out a vehicle for maintenance and operations and technology as they move throughout the district. So that's the kind of thing that's used for. In technology, it's been used a lot to get us to that 2-to-1 level of devices and to help with teachers. So we would propose that that goes forward, because otherwise your general fund, which is right at $6,000 per student. The state average is a little over $8,000 per student. It tells you you've got a $2,000 gap with just meeting the state average. We use that money to supplement to try to get to there. So on this bond issue, the maximum is far less than the last one because we try to keep the millage the same, try not to raise the cost to our patrons. And so our goal is to keep millage level. But what we will do in March and April is brainstorm anything and everything. And we let principals brainstorm, and they brainstorm with their staffs, and they bring it back. And so we start the list, and we come out here with this committee, and we go through that brainstorming project, every project that we think we would like to do. And then we try to put a price tag to it, and then we prioritize it. And when I say we, it's the committee. That committee of people did it last time. They will do it again. And then we start taking the money and match it with the brainstorming and how much can we do? What are the things we have to take off of the table because we just can't? And then it's a negotiation of projects. Your biggest issue in Deer Creek is going to be square footage. I've covered this before. I'm remiss if I don't say it again. You've got 8,000 doors that are approved in the Edmond, Oklahoma City area. That's not the county unincorporated. 4,000 of those, the plat's approved as well. So there's 4,000 doors to homes already approved. There's another 4,000 that they're approved, but they haven't approved the platting of that project. But basically, it's already gone through the Oklahoma City Council and had all of the approvals. And then you've got enough land to do another 4,000. So that's where that is. In the county, you've got lots of land open. The County Planning Commission has set in the plan that currently exists today that improvements need to occur in water and roads and bridges in order for us to do more high-density housing. There are a lot of people that want to bring the higher density housing into the area. At 206 and MacArthur, there's a desire to bring in 600 homes, and you need to take that times 2 or 2.3 children to know the impact on the school. We have a lot of new developments that were already approved that are in process, so the continued growth of 300 to 400 students at a minimum is going to be there for Deer Creek schools. So looking at all that, Deer Creek has to decide with less funds this time than before what projects they're going to do, what they can afford, and what puts a desk and chair and square footage under the most children and alleviates overcrowding. All of that will be a burden that this committee will carry. So there's a wide variety of things that people have brought up thus far. Again, the 2 elementary schools that was before, I will tell you that it was the cost of land that was prohibitive. We will bring back John Robertson to share because he spent 1.5 years looking for land, so I think it's important. We will also ask the real estate people on the committee to to go out and search again, which they did last time. But we had $500,000 allocated, which was typical for Deer Creek for land, and land in the southwest and in the east central and northeast, which is where the greater density is of new homes, was going to run us anywhere between $6 and $12 million per site. And that was for 20 acres, $6 million plus for 20 acres at either side. Which is $12 million. We were counting on $500,000, so you were losing 11.5 in terms of what you would use to put square footage under your desks and chairs. So we will look at all of the current sites, what their needs are, and this committee will determine what, how we go forward. In March, our goal is to have the architect and construction manager selection. In March and April, to begin committee meetings, project recommendations, and a board selection of projects. In May, we want to begin that decision of flyer design, promotion of the bond. You could push that to June and push the committee meetings. I think we're going to need to go all of April and probably part of May, so that will be a shared experience. But we'll start working on flyer design, sign design, the video, and that's another area where both your construction management company and your architect can be of great help. In June, you want to finalize the video. In July and August, to do town halls with videos and flyers to invite the public. And currently, the board is looking at a bond vote in September, and so there'll be a timeline for signs and emails and putting out that video. That's the pattern that we did in the 2016 bond. I would assume we'll do something similar. All of that to say there is absolutely no plan or design for what this bond issue is going to be. There is a list of needs. There's certainly a list of needs where we think we have the greatest overcrowding. We have at least 4 different options of how do we alleviate overcrowding in the schools, and so they will look at those and they may add to those. But we have doing 2 elementary schools, we have doing a 5-6 center, and then bringing 3rd grade up, which alleviates overcrowding in the elementaries, and it alleviates overcrowding at the high school. It doesn't do a lot for the middle school, but the middle school had the greatest expansion in the last bond when we added the 2nd story. We have a proposal too where it would be, instead of bringing 3rd up, you would do 6, 7, 8, and then maybe do the other school as a 6, 7, 8, alleviating overcrowding in grades 6 through 12, but doesn't really address the elementaries, other than we know we would propose a wing to be added on to Rose Union and a wing to be added on to Spring Creek. Those are in 2 pretty high, well, Rose Union is not a high growth area, but we do tend to redistrict into Rose Union, trying to keep all of the schools at 650 and not letting some of the schools get much larger than what they can handle. We've really added about everything that you can add to Deer Creek Elementary, Prairieville, and Grove Valley. Grove Valley's getting a wing that we believe will be full starting August, because we have a large section of housing and apartments that will all be open. And so what looked like would fix a lot is really, we're very concerned about capacity at that point in time. So if they're not full in August, by the following August, with the housing that is just north of their school, as well as all of the housing east of their school, as well as in the Grove, and then the apartments east of the school, there's just tremendous growth in that area. We have the same kind of growth around Spring Creek and Deer Creek Elementary. So it's just a constant challenge. One of the things that James Edwards pointed out, and we'll be presenting that as we go further, but I think one of the most important things for people to remember as a piece of data for Deer Creek schools, our growth has been 92% over the last 10 years. There's no school district that comes close. Mustangs had a big growth, Piedmont's had a big growth, but their big growth is in the 40-50%. We're 92%. Your ad valorem funding has only grown 46%. So the funds available to put square footage under desks and chairs is half of what your growth is. All of the housing additions that are available and the different things that are coming at Deer Creek from a variety of places are only going to increase that growth factor. And the funding for houses and apartments is much lower than it is for business and services. Deer Creek has the lowest business and services funding percentage in the state of Oklahoma for schools. We have 2% business and we have 2% services. When you're in a community with a lot of business that is taxed with ad valorem, it brings us revenue without children matching that. And it's certainly not that we don't want the children. We want the children. We love the children. But right now, that's probably the most critical issue facing Deer Creek schools, is that we have great growth. We have great schools. People want to come to Deer Creek schools. We have great teachers. We have a guaranteed and viable curriculum offered to all of our students. We're very proud of that. We're very proud of the methodology and how we go about teaching our students. And so we know that brings people to our district, and we want that. The concern is you don't have ad valorem growth in other areas that help support that. So this problem that we have right now, looking at the 10 years of 2010 to 2020, will only be magnified from 2020 to 2030. So the other part of that is when you don't have that, our neighbor can get the same quantity of funds in 2 years that takes us 8 to 10 years to pay off. Again, they have a lot of business and industry and services. We don't. That means this committee is critical, because you will have another good 7 to 8 years before you can propose another bond issue to tag on. So creating capacity in our schools to put that desk, that chair, is going to be one of the most critical things. So all of that to say, it's a very important committee. It's a committee that I hope too will then go out and explain to the constituents in their area the really complex issues facing this committee, and then ultimately facing the 5 of you as you make decisions as we go forward. We're going to all work to make sure you have lots of information and lots of data to make that decision. But I will tell you, on the last bond issue, we were a full year behind opening the 4th and 5th grade centers, which are really 2 schools connected by a cafeteria. But we were a full year behind because of all of the efforts that were made reaching out to landowners and reaching out to realtors, trying to find land. And that was difficult. I think it's an important story. Dr. Barnes can talk to it, but I will also say John Robertson truly met me. We were on many a four-wheeler or walking across a lot of land. We were looking, is there water, sewer, gas, electricity? Because all of those costs, there's people sitting out here, they will tell you that drives up the cost of the project in a hurry when those aren't available. And in Deer Creek, when you get out into the county, that's not available in a lot of places. Deer Creek owns land at 3 places. With the money that we've saved on our bond issue, through our construction coming in on time and under budget, we were able to purchase, and I'm going to get the numbers slightly off but close, about 57 acres at 220 and Meridian. We have another 80 acres that you can do a school across from the 4-5, and then we have another 53 to 50 some odd acres at 220 and Council. Unfortunately, that's not where our growth is at this point in time, but the buys on the land were excellent. The water, sewer, and gas is close, if not right there. There are a lot of reasons to plan ahead. There are a lot of opportunities that you can do a multitude of different school configurations utilizing those 3 pieces of land. So as compared to when I came in and we had to do a bond issue to finish some things, and then we turned right around and did a bond issue and spent 1.5 years trying to find people who would donate land. We also brought in all of your developers, thought maybe they would donate land. That didn't work. And a lot of them did not come. We reached out to all of them, and we had a lot of other people reaching out, and I understand that. There's a lot of value in the land out here because people want to build homes, and that's far more beneficial to the developer, and the cost is high to them as well because of water, sewer, gas, and electricity, because we don't have that in a lot of places. In the county plan, one of the things it states and it was actually done in about 13 and revisited in 17. It may have been 12 and 17. They said before you develop the county, we need to get to 4-lane roads. We need to have 4-lane bridges. We need to have better water because once you get to Meridian, it's 100 feet deep on the Hennessy Shale. And so the water quality, and we can vouch to water quality. It eats up all of our fixtures and faucets and things on a regular basis. It's a real challenge. But both the quantity and the quality are very poor anytime you go west of Meridian. That's in their document. It was a study done by the county on a planning commission. So anyway, as we've met with them as groups have come in, we have really stressed the fact that we don't have the roads, bridges, or water. We don't have the sewer and a lot of the utilities that the plan stated and the people of Deer Creek stated needed to be in place before you started high-density development. I will tell you that when it flooded, the most recent flood, it was a full 2 hours. We had one way into Deer Creek and one way out because a part of Portland still floods. And we have most of you know that whether you're up at far north or wherever you are, you have to know the weaving pattern to get in to get kids. But it was a full 2 hours for me to get into the office. It was a full 2 hours for our school attorney, who was headed the other direction, to get to her work. So the fact that we have 2-lane roads and bridges still remains a huge concern in terms of development out in the county. And the fact that it's just, we can't keep up with the incorporated areas and what square footage we need for the houses that are already approved. So all of that to say, this committee is going to review all of that data. All of that data is readily available from the Oklahoma City Planning Commission, from the County Planning Commission, from the State Department of Education website. And then Lennis DeRue keeps a very strong history of our growth. We look at it every year. We look at class sizes at every school. We'll be going over all of those things. One of the other things, I did allude to the fact that we try to add 2 to 3 buses per year. Busing, getting drivers, number one, for all school districts has been very, very difficult, continues to be very difficult, even with raising salaries. We have wonderful drivers, but we need more. All schools need more. Getting the buses comes at $100,000 a bus. We run 3 routes. That gives a 6-hour day to our drivers, which provides them benefits, which is a very important part of their salary. But we really run it because we can't get the drivers and the number of buses it takes to run 2 routes. We've done those calculations several times. I will ask Judge Critchfield to present that again to that committee just to talk about that. There's nothing more. Every person working in Deer Creek would like to have 2 routes. But we have to go from, the last one, I believe we needed at least 45 or 48 buses. How many do we currently have? Do you know, Jeff? We currently run 35. And so that means we're always short drivers. Jeff's crew is often pulled. We certify about anybody to run a bus if they can pass that test. They also have made that much more difficult in recent times. And the most important thing is they have not changed the funding for transportation. One, it's not required, and there are those that think we shouldn't do it. Number 2, it has not been changed since 1980. We get between 5 and 10 cents on the dollar of what it costs us to run transportation. So it's one of those massively underfunded things that we think is very important to get our kids to school every day. But it's a challenge, and I know people are talking about, well, we need more buses and we need to do this. That's some of the challenge. You got 5 cents on the dollar, and finding people to drive is just a very difficult thing as well. All of that to say, that's what this committee is going to do. And a lot of what we talked about, we will talk about in far greater detail with a lot of charts and facts to present to that committee. And then that committee will make recommendations to the board, and some of those presentations will come to you as well. So that was long. My sincere apologies. When you get me started, sometimes I don't know how to quit. But I wanted it to be very clear There's no predetermined anything. Everything's on the board. All options are out there, but they will have a very difficult job of trying to decide what they can afford.
It's always been a daunting task ever since the late 70s when the growth started to try to get enough square footage for kids. We're always behind. By the time we have enough money to buy a school, to build a school, then it's full when you open it. And so we never have any breathing room. We've had to repurpose a lot of our buildings through the year to make things work. So it's difficult. It's extremely difficult to find the money to continue to build the schools. Some of the board members might not know that Spring Creek land was donated, and so was Grove Valley land was donated too. We probably couldn't have been able to build those schools if we didn't have the land donated for us. So it's a hard job, and it's hard to find out what we need, not only schools, but other things we need to keep our schools going too. The band, the arts, the sports, everything. Everybody needs money to keep going, and it's going to be a difficult job. And I think that you've always had a great cross section of people in your committees, and it's going to be fine. I would say too, buses are $100,000, but bus drivers are priceless. So
Yeah.
that's a big thing too. You can have a bunch of buses, but you don't have anybody to drive them. What are you going to do?
Yes.
So,
And we do have the best. I
Yeah,
mean, we
they are.
have bus drivers that our parents and children absolutely love, and they love our kids. And they will do anything to see that a child's taken care of. So I'm very proud of that department and what they do for families, and that relationship that they have with our kids. They become another parent to the kids on their bus, and they take it that seriously.
But when you have dedicated teachers and involved parents and motivated students and an administration and a board that has a vision about how to educate kids the best, then you have people that want to move out here. And I think that speaks highly. Here we are talking about we have so many kids. I think that speaks highly of what we do in Deer Creek to educate kids. That's why parents want to come out here.
Good. All right, anything else?
I think that's enough for
that's it?
tonight. That's
Okay.
enough for tonight.
All right. Okay, if nothing else there, we'll go to D, public to be heard. The floor is open at this time for any residents of the Deer Creek Public School District number 006 to address the Board of Education on items that pertain to education and/or the operation of the school district. Those residents wishing to address the Board of Education must complete a request for public participation form prior to the scheduled starting time of the regular board meeting. A response may or not be provided at this time. Questions or concerns related to employees of the district will not be permitted at this time. Those are to be referred to the superintendent at another time. We have one person, Charles Long. Charles, and you'll have 5 minutes, okay? Yeah, and I'm timing you with my phone. I'm not checking any text messages.
I got you.
Okay.
Good evening, guys. Thanks for having the meeting and letting us talk to you. One of the main issues I wanted to talk about was the upcoming bond, and that was very helpful, Burnett. All the information you gave, a lot of it was things I didn't know as pertaining to the past, because I haven't been here for just 3 years, and the history behind what you guys have faced for challenges there. I did want to address, and I know Dr. Candace Chesky talked about it 2 meetings ago, the last time there was a public participation, about the grade centers, and a lot of people I've talked to are not a fan of those because of continuity of care with special needs kids, of continuity of just any kid who just wants to be familiar with the school they're in. People in general are reluctant to change. So every time you move a kid to a new building, they have a new group of faculty, a librarian, a media center representative, the nurse. All those things are new to them. And I have a kid who is a special needs kid. She does not do well with change, and she's scheduled to go to that school next year. And I'm really not looking forward to it.
To the 4-5.
The 4-5, yes, sir. So I caution the committee to continue down that road just for those reasons. And I'm not anti-board. I'm not anti-bond. I just want what's best for my kids and what I think is best for the constituents who we represent, you guys represent in the community. So a couple of the questions that she did have, you kind of answered, because she asked if it would be written, if the language would be to add elementary schools instead of centers. Well, we don't know at this point if it's going to be centers or elementary schools. And the positives of having the centers, which maybe you're still trying to figure those out. I don't know, because I can't think of anything, but they're probably there. Regarding the committee, I did want to talk about that because I had read on Dr. Keene's campaign page that there was going to be one. I'd love to volunteer for that. I know I'm not a fan of some people around here, but you know, I have a breadth of experience. My kids are in their 3rd school district within the last 5 years. I've lived in 7 different states as an adult, and I've seen a lot of different things. My school district that I went to in Ohio that I graduated from was all farmland at one point, and I graduated with a class of 700. So we went through the same struggles. I know this is a unique situation, but there have been these struggles in the past that people have overcome, and you guys can do this. It's not unforeseeable, you know, that we can get past these, and you just have to have a lot of different types of minds looking at them. A couple of people who have asked me, who I told I was coming up here, asked if the committee is going to have minutes posted, if it's going to be open to the public, and I know you guys are not obligated to answer these questions tonight, but it's just something to think about, because there are people who have looked at the Return to Learn committee and say, well, I never saw a solicitation for this. I would have liked to have been on that, or what happens at these secret meetings. And nobody's to say that it's deceptive and on purpose, but when it's not as transparent as some people would like to be or like it to be, it comes across that way. And I think the more transparency you can give to the community, the best, because there's no questioning as to what's going on behind the scenes. And when people have those questions as, well, what might they be doing? It's always a negative thought, right? Nobody ever thinks, well, somebody's doing something private that's positive. You know, they think it's, well, they're trying to do something underhanded. And I don't want anybody in our community to think that of us, of you guys, of any kind of committee that's working to try and make our community better. But yeah, just wanted to kind of touch on those things. And you're right, this is a really difficult project for this committee. It's a really important project. Like, I have a kid who's in the 3rd grade, and I have a kid who's in the 7th grade, and they have years left to, and a lot of you guys might be gone. You may not sit on the board, you may not stay, but these kids are still going to be here, and they're going to be the ones who have to, and their parents are going to be the ones who have to live through the decisions that are made by these people looking forward. So it's really important to a lot of us, and put my name out there. I'd like to be on it, but you know, I've been told, well, if you don't like the way things are, you just move. Well, no, I'm not moving. I know I've been to a lot of places, but we're here to stay. Yeah. So, but and also thank you guys for what you do. I know this is a hard job. It's a difficult job. I've talked to numerous of you one-on-one and in small groups, and a lot of times there are no right answers. You're not going to make everybody happy, and you know, we understand that as a community. We just kind of want as much transparency as you can provide as possible, and that's all we're asking here. So, thank you.
Thank you very
You've
much
been here
for sharing.
3 years, Chuck?
Yes, sir.
So that opens the door for me to say, this is March is our 100th birthday of Deer Creek being an incorporated school. So get you some cookie, take it home to your kids. And,
One last thing. If you didn't stop the clock, one thing I was looking at, and this does go to funding, I was, because we have all the county areas, and I was doing a little bit of research on the state legislation as to why and how this area could be incorporated, and it's possible. Like, we have unincorporated county areas, which I live in, and there is nothing that's, it's a petition, it's, you know, up to citizens to do it, but that in and of itself could bring more tax revenue, that in and of itself could help change the roads, that in and of itself could bring more businesses. So it's also something to look at, and it's not necessarily you guys' job, but, you know, other people are watching this, and just put it out there. It's something that we should probably consider if we're going to continue having this growth.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
What did we do with the last committee? Were there reports, or I wasn't sure about that?
It was reported back at special board meetings and regular board meetings
Okay.
periodically as they met.
Okay.
You know, we didn't have some of these other things going at the time, but there were regular reports. And by the way, to all of you sitting out here, we do have, thanks to Dr. Barnes, a little celebration of blue and white. It
Cookies.
is our 100th anniversary of incorporating at this time. Our seniors are very excited about being on that 100th mark as they graduate. So it is a very special year, but thank you, Dr. Barnes. He has a long history and really is I have longer. There we go. He gave that to me earlier. He has the longer Deer Creek history, but I am the older person.
I'm surprised you didn't have a black tie, because aren't the black our main colors, black and white?
Yeah, black and white.
He's a purist. Everything's blue and white. If he could have colored those chocolate chips in the cookie, he would have changed that.
I'm gonna come in my blue and white tux one of these nights.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. He has blue shoes as well. So, but there's a lot of pride in the growth of Deer Creek. Dr. Barnes, I could talk about what the class size was when you graduated versus now,
Yeah,
but
well,
I'll just let that go,
yeah.
unless you want to
Well, it was-
share.
in '74, it was less than 20.
Yes.
So now, what are we, 300 plus?
No.
No, 5.
We're close, we're 400 and moving towards 5. We've been in the upper 3s, so we are well on our way. Our lower grades are at 550 and higher. So we're growing rapidly as compared to the 17. We were definitely, as you said to your growing up, that very small farm community, a very tiny one. I used to play in the gym with my cousin in the old gym because he went to school here. So I got to shoot baskets on Sunday afternoons whenever we had family dinners. But a lovely, lovely community, and it's depicted well in the 4th and 5th grade center. When you go in on the right, you will see the farm tours they used to have to raise money for the schools. So it's really a great history.
Thank you. Thank you again for sharing. Next, we'll go into business items. Number 1 is discussion and possible vote on emergency days for support staff.
Okay, Linus, you may want to help me here, but basically, you have the ability in policy to grant 3 days of emergency. Our surrounding districts have done something similar. What we are asking you to do is to grant 6. I will tell you, Edmond has already granted 6. That still leaves our staff with additional work to do, and Linus, I'll just let you take it from there and begin to add to that. But we are coming to the board to ask you to grant 6 days to our support staff.
So our support staff, due to no fault of their own, due to the pandemic and ice and snow, it's been a crazy, unusual year. They have missed anywhere from 15 to 22 days, depending on what site they're at, which totals up to about anywhere from 90 to 165 hours, which is very difficult for a support staff member to make up at the end of a school year, because you want their work to be authentic and meaningful. And at the end of the school year, if you're a bus driver or a paraprofessional, there might not be that opportunity to do that. And we don't want someone just sitting in a building, doing nothing. So we are asking, I think we did this back in, was it 2009, that other big long, when we were out for
That was 2009.
We came to you back then and asked for some relief as well. And so we're not asking for all of their days off. Like I said, there's a total of 15 to 22, depending on what site. We are asking for 6, which doubles what you typically have done in the past. And then we are going to work with our support staff on how to begin making that time up now, so that it can be more meaningful work. And some examples of how to make up time would be to add 15, 20, 25, 30 minutes onto their day, where they can help with bus duties and supervision of children. If they come in a day or so at the end of the year, they can help with technology, checking in technology, doing equipment type things at their school site. We always have our online professional development that has a ton of great professional development that they can hone in on that is above and beyond what's required by the state. Another example, our nurses, our LPNs, they are, work that first vaccine clinic for 5 extra hours off their contract time, and then we have another one coming up. So there's a variety of ways one can make up the additional hours if you were to approve to grant them 6 emergency days. I think first and foremost, we want to make sure that our employees are treated right and that they are continued to be paid. Obviously, support is some of our lowest salary schedules, and would hate to do anything that would take anything away from them. They also have the ability to take personal days if they can't make something up. And then some choose to just get docked, but we want to give them that option. So we have a lot of different pathways they can choose to make up their time once we decide on what that time looks like. We do have to make up some of it, otherwise it would be gifting of funds, which we cannot do. So if you guys were to approve this, then we would look at their hours and reduce some, so again, that it's meaningful and relevant and can help our school sites as opposed to doing nothing.
So they would all have that reduced by 6 days. So if they had 12 days out, they'd only have 6 days left.
Correct. There's 15 to 22, so let's just use the 15 one, because
Okay.
that's the majority of our support staff have missed 15 days and not able to work virtually. Some of our support staff have been able to work virtually. Our secretaries have been doing some things at home. Some central office people can work virtually at home. But if they're not able to work virtually, like let's say a paraprofessional or a bus driver, we would reduce the 15 days down by 6, and then they would just make up a portion of those remaining
Gotcha.
hours in the different pathways that I described.
And the reason you don't see certified is they were teaching remotely and virtually during that time, so they're not in the same position.
Gotcha. Any questions? Do I have a motion to approve 6 emergency days for the support staff?
So moved.
Second.
Bamford,
Yes.
Neves,
Yes.
Keen,
Yes.
Lay, yes, Barnes.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Number 2 is discussion and possible vote to approve amendment number 14, Deer Creek Alumni Demolition to guaranteed maximum price contract for construction management services. Expenditures are to be paid from Bond Fund 31.
Good evening. Good to see everybody again, and congratulations on the 100 years. That's pretty exciting. So about 6 weeks ago, we got a phone call, wanted to meet and possibly look at this project. As you know, I looked back at my notes, and I felt like we were talking about this in December of 19, but there's no way it was that long ago, but I guess it was. We came before you all with some options. And so here we are. Like I say, we met with MA Plus in the district about 5-6 weeks ago, and worked hard to get this project put together as quickly as we could, as clean and streamline it for the bidders as we could in that time frame. So last Thursday, just a few days ago, we held bids here at the administration building. Had a pretty good turnout. We had 4 bids for the demolition portion, and then 5 for earthwork. So good turnout for those 2 bid packages. Came within what we felt like it should have within budget. And as you know, we met with with the bidders, called them on Friday, went through the low bidders. We're going to recommend tonight. They're all contractors. Some are currently working at your district, but both have before. So other than that, Didn't know if the board had any questions or.
No.
I think our plan, for next week's spring break, if y'all do choose to move forward with this, it's a good time with the kids being gone that we can start putting up fencing, get our entrance in, and kind of have all that in place so when the kids come back, everything is there and hopefully kind of make that transition smoother for when they come back. So
Just the whole building, right? The whole
Yes.
building,
Yes.
those auditoriums and everything.
Yes.
Okay.
yes, so in this amendment, we would take away everything that is standing currently with the earthwork package. Then we'd fill in and smooth that area up. That way, for the future, whatever district might want to choose, that land's sitting there available.
Okay.
Will it affect tennis and baseball and like?
So working, we don't think it will. It's going to affect it some. I mean, but our thought is we're going to put in an entrance right in between your two current entrances you have. It'd be our own because obviously there's going to be a bunch of trucks coming and going. So we wanted to stay out of y'all's way as much as we could, obviously for safety. And then we realized that you guys need as much parking over there as you can. So we're going to have an entrance, keep it as narrow as we can so trucks can come in. Just kind of give them enough space so they can maneuver, load the trucks, and leave. But the entire site we surround it with fencing, and we'll stay off the drive for the baseball and the tennis area. We'll stay out of that area, and then the same over here on the east side. So we'll just kind of be on our island right in between everybody.
How long does it take? How long will it take?
We were asked and told to be done by June 1, so that's our plan.
That's the goal.
That's the goal. So we think that's doable.
Okay.
Talking with the contractors, and that was the plan when we went out to bid, and so should be done.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do I have a motion to approve this amendment number 14, Deer Creek Alumni Demolition Guaranteed Maximum Price Contract for Construction Management Services? Expenditures are to be paid from Bond Fund 31.
So moved.
Second.
Lay, yes. Barnes?
Yes.
Keen?
Yes.
Neves?
Yes.
Bamford?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Number 3 is discussion and possible vote to select an architecture firm for the 2021 bond program.
Okay, you've had 4 presentations of 4 wonderful architectural firms. Now's a great time. I know that you all have not had a chance to meet and discuss. So it's a great time for you to have some conversation. You have some options of going and looking at projects if you would like to look at some things that people have completed. But I would caution you that certainly by the 1st of April, this decision needs to be made, if not now. So honestly, I know you all haven't had much of a chance to talk, and we've not all had a great deal of conversation with anyone. So it's on here so that you can make a decision if you're ready. It's also on here so that if you need a little bit of time for due diligence, that was mentioned by one, that you can take that time to do whatever you need to do. In the 2016 bond, we did go and tour several facilities looking at different things that have been constructed. These architects did show you some pictures of some of the things that were constructed. And then you're very familiar, of course, with MA Plus that we've worked with in this bond program. I'm here to answer any questions that you might have or to facilitate a discussion.
Danny, you've been through this before. Give us your thoughts.
So I was just going to say, if somebody's been around ever since
The 100-year anniversary, yeah.
Since after Prairieville was built, I think I've been on every building since then. I have to say, MA Plus has just been wonderful to work with. I think that everybody would agree with that they've kind of known what we want, and I'm just very, very pleased with them. I also think also that studio with Kenny Dennis, Kenny understands Deer Creek. He's been on the board, and he knows what we need. I would think that I would go, it sounds like we're going to have some smaller projects on the bond. My feeling is I would like to stay with MA Plus for the larger, and then let Studio do some of the smaller ones and see. We're never going to be in Edmond where they can have 3 architects and 3 construction management people, but I think that it would be better to have a couple of people working on that. And they all did great. I mean, I don't think we would go wrong with any of them. I just think that MA Plus has worked with us very closely, and we've developed relationships, and I think that it would behoove us to continue that because they know us well. So that would be my choices.
Okay. Do you guys have enough information, you think? Do you think we want to wait till the next board meeting?
I feel like we have enough information. I mean, I think we've heard from the administration and talked with the group who's been working with the existing contractors and how they feel about the job that's been done, and that's important, I think, for us in the decision we make. Then another factor, I think, for this one, for me, is that this next project is going to be on the same land, it sounds like, as the 45 Center. So, I mean,
Unless you find land at a price that you can afford
That's
in
where
the
some of
others.
our
We
land is.
certainly will do
Right.
that
Yeah.
search depending on the projects, but you have 3 pieces of land
That's one of the pieces
available
of
to
land.
you.
right, so if we don't, I mean, I just think that for the sake of consistency, if we do, I mean, if that is where we land, it would be nice for the district to work with the people they've been working with in that area. And not only the people they've been working with, but the people they've been working with have established and really good relationship with.
So, Danny, how would you divide that up, big projects, small projects?
Well, I think there's some wings that need to be done possibly that we've talked about in the past. And like I said, I don't know what's going to be on the bond issue. It's just whatever is identified by the committee and go.
You also could select what you're going, because we don't know the projects, and we don't really know what they're going to
Yes,
choose. Now,
correct.
is there a need to take 2 elementaries and get them to be about the same size as the others? That's one of the better ways that we can continue to meet some of the growth concerns that we have for the elementaries. But you can always make a selection, and then you can meet and add to that as you add a project or something. You can do it, you can name it, you can do it now, you can start and then make that determination later. That's strictly up to you.
Yeah, I think competition makes us all better, and you have a couple of people competing for those projects. I think it brings out the best in everybody. So that's my thoughts. I mean,
Yeah, I
whatever
agree.
y'all
I
think
agree.
is fine too.
That's exactly right.
I will say, it's highly probable that you will add the wing to Rose Union and renovate that building. And it's greatly needed to add the wing at Spring Creek. Again, it's going to get down to dollars. It's going to get down to dollars available of where you're going to put that square footage. So other than saying that's what would make our 5 current elementaries approximately the same size and help us in that. And we've made the wing addition to Prairieville, Deer Creek Elementary, and we're currently doing it to Grove Valley. So those are already done. We've already had a wing addition. They've done a wing addition to Spring Creek already, but we feel like we could do one more that brings all of those schools closer to serving 650 students at each site. So again, that's just in the list of things for people to consider. There definitely is a need for, at a minimum, renovating Rose Union like we've done the other 4 elementaries. Probably we would have done Rose Union before Grove Valley, except for the growth in Grove Valley area dictated that we had to do the wing. And if you're going to do the wing, you want to do the renovation at the same time so that you have everything ordered and have that continuity. So again, those are just things that I know we'll talk about in that committee meeting, but that committee will make those final decisions. We've been able, because we saved money, working both with CMS and MA Plus, the fact that we came in on time and under budget allowed us to renovate those buildings. Because originally, we were going to add the wings, but renovation was not a part of that. And so we renovated, we're in our 4th renovation thanks to the savings that we had working with MA Plus and CMS.
So then so for the first one is architecture firm.
Yes.
So then, we need a motion for just the MA
Just
Plus?
architecture.
Huh?
Just for architecture would be the first motion.
First one, but I mean, because you talked about MA Plus and studio, would you make a motion to accept both of them?
Right. I think we could do that.
Or you accept one of them and then add the other one later for smaller projects, you're saying? I'm just asking because you kind of threw that out
Right,
there.
it would require another vote if you didn't add them in the motion, right?
Right, you would have to come back and vote on that at a later date. All I was saying is you can do it now guessing that we'll have those additional projects, or you can save it and do something like that a little bit later. Either way you do it's fine. If we, for some reason, couldn't do those projects, then clearly we wouldn't be able to go forward with that, so.
And
it's
probably what
different.
you're asking is the definition of a smaller project. Like,
Yeah. How do we?
Who creates the plan for what, unless we, right?
Does that be the committee?
Without the committee meeting,
Right.
you
It's
don't,
hard, yeah.
That's hard.
you've got potential for you're going to build about 200,000 square feet. And that's about all you're going to be able to afford.
Right.
Okay, because I can take the cost of the current 4.5. If you do the 6% per year increase in construction cost, you're going to get closer to 60. 60 is a maximum of what you're going to have. So you're going to have to divide that. Either you're going to do one bigger school, or you're going to do 2 smaller schools that are each half that size, and maybe a little less because you're doing the wings. So again, without that committee meeting and looking at all the things, it's real hard. I can't tell you what the project will be. I can tell you you're going to have high growth and need in the elementary. That's our fastest growing. That's why those class sizes are running closer to 550. It rolls up every year, though. The high school grows about 100 students a year as well. So it rolls up, and the high school is growing. So you're going to have to look at all the areas where you have growth and figure out then that it's a chess game, it's a puzzle piece, and how do we best put that puzzle together with the dollars that you have. So it's hard for me to say, will we have small projects? Will we have 2 medium projects? Will we have 1 large and a little bit of small?
Okay.
I don't know until the committee meets. I really don't know what to tell you in terms of that. As I said, you could choose to build just a 6th grade thing and then build an elementary. You could choose to build 2 elementaries if you could find the land. You could choose to build a bigger school at any one of the 3 sites that we have and determine who goes in that site. You have a lot of things going to be discussed from now through the end of April to determine what those projects are. If we do that, we wouldn't be holding a committee, but
That's right.
because it's very challenging, it's very important for the patrons of Deer Creek to really talk to us about what they want. And so I can tell you lots of possibilities, but I can't tell you what those estimates are. I can tell you that having an architect and having construction management, for us to get good, clear, solid estimates on the proposed projects, we need them to be a part of that team from the get-go. They're a very critical part of helping us decide how far will our dollars go in the projects that we would like to do. And so that's why it's on here for an architect and a construction management company to plan with us from the beginning what those projects are. Okay. This is not as big a bond issue, and it's still going to be spread out over this 6 or 7 year time period. You've used the companies that are sitting out here today, because you do stagger these projects. Like, we just knew there was no way to do Rose Union on top of Grove Valley. We didn't do anything on the opening of the 4-5 because that alone, trying to get everybody moved in and ready. So you have to, even with the little projects, generally they're staggered with the others. And they've done a very effective job of completing a project on time when we needed to. I would tell you that you would like to do Rose Union's project next year. And you would also like to do Spring Creek, because we've talked about the growth in the Grove Valley area, but you've got just as much or more growth in the Spring Creek area. You didn't have it before Spring Creek got there. You had a little bit of it, but they knew if we build it, they will come, and they have. And that area has water, sewer, gas, and electricity when you get into the metro piece of that. So it's very easy for developers, and most of that's sold and already platted. So it will only continue to grow in that area. It's only going to continue to grow in the Grove Valley, Prairieville area.
So
It's just going to continue to grow.
It's just going to continue to
So
grow.
you're
But I
saying
will
we're
tell
gonna
you,
grow.
last time, this bond issue, your maximum's 90 million. Last time it was 176 million.
Yeah.
You got about half the bond issue, okay? You got half the money to work with this time that we had on the one before. So,
yeah,
the
that's-
truth is,
that's
I
right.
wanted that to be the heritage that that's my heritage.
Yes.
James has heard me say that a lot. After spending a year and a half hunting for land, the fact that we own 3 pieces, people don't know what a big deal that is. That's why I want John Robertson to come talk about the big deal, because it is a huge thing that we at least have something to work with.
Does the land at DC 45, the opposite land, have sewer water?
DC
Yeah.
45 has sewer, water, electricity, and gas because we brought it all into there. The land at 220 and Meridian has sewer, water, electricity, and gas. So that's a real plus. The land at 220 and Council, same thing. That's one of the things that made it very attractive, is it's there. Now, the Deer Creek Water will still charge you 2 miles of pipe. It doesn't matter, and they want to drill wells. So there is a cost to water at there isn't at the DC 45. Water's
We've already got
covered. That was negotiated.
And that would save us $1
Didn't we- we
million
had to bring that
because
in.
that's,
But it is like $1 million.
We had to
it
bring
was
the
over $1
water
million
in.
just to
They made
bring
us
it.
run new pipe.
For the
There
water,
was
yeah.
water
We had to
there,
run
but
new
it
pipe.
wasn't as big, they didn't have as big a pipe. We had to run 2 miles of pipe, and they have the opportunity to drill wells. No matter where we go, that will still be a requirement to work with Deer Creek Water.
Except at the 45. since
Except
it's
at
right
the
there.
45. The 45
Yeah.
has all of the utilities in place, and that was a part of that agreement, was that we knew that at some point there would be at least one more school facility there. And we talked a lot, and it's been alluded to at the time we were doing it. We talked a lot about pulling 6th grade in, 5th grade up, and doing 3-4, because for parents, that center drive and that drop-off means my kids are really in a nice 4-year span, and in age ranges of kids, we thought that was possibly a good thing. And so what we talked about was early childhood centers, upper elementary grouped together, and then obviously 7-8 is north, because wasn't that land donated? Danny, the
Which one?
middle school? Middle school, was
No.
it donated? Or
No.
We just
No, we-
economically purchased it?
Yeah. There's 2 sisters there that sold us land pretty cheap, so.
Yeah, we got an extremely good buy there. And then, of course, 9 through 12 is 4 grades together. So really, it kind of puts it in those kinds of clusters. So there is some logic to the economics, but again, that's something the committee will have to look at.
Okay, so do we have a motion?
Anybody have any discussion more? Okay, well, I'll make a motion for MA Plus and Studio as our architectural firms for the 21 bond program.
Second. Barnes,
Yes.
Lai, yes. King,
Yes.
Neves,
Yes.
Bamford.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
So number 4 is the same thing for the construction management firm for the 2021 bond program. think we touched on some of that stuff with what we just talked about, but go ahead.
Once again, CMS did Rose Union and Grove Valley and did an outstanding job. Then we went with somebody else for some of the other projects, and I just can't say much how CMS is really impressive. They've saved us money. They come in under bid. They're easy to work with. Corey's always available here tonight. My thought is, although everybody else did great presentations, and I wish, I kind of like the enthusiasm of the L5 guys, but they just don't have the expertise and experience yet. I think they'll go places and they're going to grow, but my thought is that CMS would be my pick.
I mean, they're probably, my top two were, I think, Lingo and CMS.
Yeah, I mean, they were all great. I think we would be okay with all of them except for L5 on a larger project, but we've just had this relationship with, and we know these people by name, and they're always available, and they just, I just think they've done a very good job for Deer Creek, and they have in the past too. And so,
Yeah.
my recommendation would be CMS.
And I think, and these guys, and they've all, and just like, and MA Plus has done the same, they've kind of poured themselves into Deer Creek. I mean, if I've been at football games and events, before COVID and stuff, and you'd always see one of them around, always there,
Sponsoring events.
sponsoring or being a part of the school or part of the culture. So I think that's good. So have a motion.
Make a motion for CMS Willowbrook as our construction management firm.
I'll second.
Barnes,
Yes.
Bamford,
Yes.
King,
Yes.
Neves,
Yes.
Lay, yes, motion carried 5-0.
Number 5 is discussion on return to learn. Do we have any updates, or
How'd today go?
how did they go?
Yeah, we are returning to
I
learn.
was curious how the middle school and high school fared.
Dennis?
You've had a better chance to talk to a few of them. If you would like to share, that would be awesome.
Before I start with updates, I do want to say, because I don't know that we've publicly done it very much, but I want to thank our Return to Learn committee and give them all the gratitude that I have and my colleagues have for all the time and effort that they put into serving on what I feel like, Danny and I have been here the longest, to be one of the most difficult and challenging committees and decision-making entities that has ever been. These people spent many hours working, and although their decisions were not 100% accepted by the total population, there would have been no way that that could have occurred. The majority of them are educators. That's what they went to school for, have multiple degrees for, and they did an excellent job at representing school and kids, which is what we're here for. Everything that was discussed in every committee meeting was shared with you as a board in a public format. There were no hidden meetings, secret discussions. Everything was very public, and everything was in our Return to Learn plan. The only thing that probably wasn't shared were the many tears that occurred. It was not a committee that 100% agreed at all times. So I want to make that very clear that it was a difficult committee. Everyone poured their heart into it, and there's not enough accolades that I can give them for the time that they served with the most difficult decision that we faced as a school district and as a state, honestly. So thank you for letting me say that.
And
Fast forward.
Thank you, Lennis, for doing it. We're all volunteers up here, and we know those people volunteer. Chuck offering to, volunteer for the upcoming committee. Those are hard jobs that they
They
don't
are.
pay very well. And
They don't pay very
we
well.
thank them,
Bottle of water.
thank them
Yeah.
for doing
Yes.
that. And
There was
spending
no way
those
to
2
know.
or 3 hours.
Yeah, there was no way that when that committee was formed, anyone could have known what was ahead. So,
Yes.
Go ahead, sorry.
So fast forward, I know that I've discussed this with you, but I don't know that we've said it publicly, but we had a very successful vaccine clinic. We were able to vaccinate 422 people at that clinic. At this point, we probably have close to 450, maybe closer to 500 staff who are vaccinated. We're close to 70% of our staff vaccinated. Today, the state opened up phase 3, which includes students 16 and up. That portal opens this evening at midnight for them to begin signing up, and Mr. Phillips has sent that out to all high school parents at this point. I have also sent it out to all of our employees in case they have a 16-year-old and up that does not attend Deer Creek. We have our second vaccination clinic on March 25th. We have gotten numerous requests from people who didn't choose to get it the first time, want it their first shot this next time, which we're going to attempt to accommodate. Today, 2 weeks ago, I touched base with the elementary principals to see how their days went, and they were in typical elementary fashion giddy. They are so excited to have all their kids back, and I know the kids are excited. I think the few small hiccups we anticipated, which was car line, but other than that, as Renette will often say, we were able to feed kids and get them to and from school safely, which is a huge win on a daily basis. The same thing happened for middle school and high school today. I touched base with Mrs. Van Dorn and Mr. Phillips, and they said it went great. The high school opened up a lunch area outside to be able to physical distance a little bit better, and that went over very well. And they are allowing, I think, like 6 to a table, so they're still able to, it's still manageable. And I think those are all the great updates. So if we can get through this week and just have a great week, I think parents and students will be happy and be ready to rock and roll after we get back from spring break.
What are we seeing with the buses? What percentage of people are riding buses?
That's a great question, and one I don't have an answer to. I might look at Jeff to see if he knows.
It's okay, I mean,
Say that again.
14.
Okay.
All 43 of those percent of the students are back on the bus, you think? You think 43% are back onto the buses, you think? Okay. Okay. Yes.
And we do still have quite a few students who chose to stay virtual for second semester too, which brings your numbers down a little bit. We have opened up our OLR, which is our online registration, and are hoping that our parents get busy doing that. It's very important because it helps us predict the staffing that we're going to need for next year. And I would say this year it is the most important because we don't know how many kids will come back from virtual or not. And so I'm just putting a little plug in there for OLR. If you can get that done in the next couple of days, that would be a huge help to your site principals who are needing to decide what their staffing needs are so that we can move forward, prepare for next year.
And I've gotten some questions about going back on Friday this year. And from what I understand, we're not doing that this year because
You
of,
voted that our return to learn would be Monday through Thursday and that we
Yes.
would stay remote learning on Fridays. And then next year go back traditional Monday through Friday,
5 days.
5 days a week.
And that's because teachers are still putting all of their plans
Yes,
into Canvas.
correct.
They have to serve our students that are remote. We do still have some family students who are remote because they're nervous about everybody coming
Correct.
back.
Yes.
So there's a considerable quantity of kids that haven't come fully back
Correct.
yet. And then you have the issue of quarantines, and we got spring break coming. So,
That's right.
you know, every time we get a break, we have a little surge. The anticipation is we'll have a few more quarantines based on that. So quarantines and serving kids remotely has not gone away. We still have to adequately and equitably serve all students. And that's in law that we have to do that. So in order for our teachers to be able to facilitate both the students who have to be at home and the students that are in class, with this year, every week, they're creating the plans on Friday, having them posted by Monday. It's a big task, and there's a lot of collaboration that occurs. There's a tremendous amount of assistance and coaching by Dr. Jones and her team, helping teachers, and we've certainly expanded what they're putting on when you look at the first of the year to where we are now, but that takes time. Teachers also reach out to students who are remote on Fridays and do well checks as well as academic checks. So there's a lot of things. Your principals would tell you that probably the most important day, the busiest day, the day that everything is on task is Friday.
And that message was echoed at the Return to Learn Committee. You know, that's one thing, and thank you, Linus, for keeping that going and keeping this on the agenda, Mike, as president. We really appreciate that. Dr. Barnes and I had served on that committee, and, you know, at the last meeting, we just asked them, hey, what can we do to help you? What messages can we get back to the community to help you? And that was what the teachers had shared, was just remind everybody, you know, we still need this Friday. That Friday still represents 20% of our instructional time. And just to remind everyone, you know, to help your kids stay plugged in for that. And again, also, the flip side of that is to still have empathy for the challenges that our parents are facing, you know, on those days. And, you know, just all of us trying to work together as a community and to work together and just, you know, to have a little bit more empathy with each other. And also part of that message from that meeting was to have empathy with the families that are back and then those that are still staying remote. You know, that we still think of those families and to wear the masks. That was what the teachers were saying, is just kind of reinforce with your kids. Remember, we still got to wear our masks. So that was, and Dr. Barnes, if I forgot anything, please chime in. But that's kind of you know, they're glad to be back, but let's not forget about these things that we still need to keep working on.
And we did talk about the quality of the mask. You know, it's far more important that you have the layers to the mask and that it properly covers the mouth and nose. If you have gaps, that's where you're going to get, Dr. Barnes, you all would describe this better, but infiltration on the mask. So it's very, very important that we have a mask that properly covers the mouth and nose, that's also the right layers of thickness if you're trying to protect. And we need to remember that we wear the mask to protect those around us. When you wear the mask, that's protecting me. When I'm wearing it, I'm doing that in an effort to protect you. And so we do ask, and you did vote, that we would continue those practices through the end of the year. We all have high hopes that between vaccines and those that have had COVID, that we will get closer to herd immunity, and hopefully with the vaccines that have been developed in 9 months rather than the normal 12, 13, 14 years, that this pandemic, this health pandemic that's impacted all of us, will go away. But we certainly know, and we certainly empathize with the struggle that our families have had in finding childcare and finding extra tutoring and in teaching their own children. So we know that's been hard. I also want you to know it's been hard for teachers to teach at school and at home, and most of them have children, so most of them are doing the very same thing as their parents. Most of them are going home to teach their children in the evening. So there's no question this has been very impactful to everyone involved. But we do appreciate, we've had a lot of support from families and parents, and the gratitude from the entire staff. I can't describe how much we appreciate the help and support we've had from families, and how much we too want to be back 5 days a week and do school. There's no one here that wanted to do 2 days or 4 days, or that was never in our wildest dreams.
Yeah.
Did we think we would be faced with these issues and have to figure that out?
So if someone's going remote, do they have to call each day that they're remote? Or do they say, I'm gonna be remote for a week or two, or?
They're communicating, they need to communicate with their site principal and
Yeah.
and the secretaries there.
They just they have to call the office each day?
They just let the office know. I would assume most of them have set, if they know they're going to stay remote for a
Mhm.
period of time, that's been set. If they're just doing it for a week or two to see how this is going, I know that there's been lots of communication back and forth between parents. Each one's different. So the main thing is just make sure that your school site knows.
Knows that you're gonna be out.
I have a question. It's my understanding that once you've been vaccinated, that you don't have to quarantine from exposure? Is that our
That's correct.
policy?
After
That's correct.
the health
So
department has sent us a recommendation that after you receive your second vaccine, 2 weeks after that, you should have the ability to not need to quarantine. So, first or second week of April, we should have the majority of our staff who chose to be vaccinated. They will have received their vaccination by then. And then we will not need to vaccinate those staff, or not vaccinate, sorry. We will not need to quarantine those staff members at that point. So 2 weeks after the second vaccine.
And then students, do you know if it's going to be the one Johnson shot or two?
No, they actually sent out specifications, and students 16 and up have to receive the Pfizer vaccine.
Okay.
I'm not sure why. Dr. Barnes or someone else can
That's
speak
probably
better.
the only trials they've done.
Yeah.
So, that's the portal that's opening will be for the Pfizer vaccine for 16 and up.
Thank you for that.
And lastly, I just want to say a huge thank you to our teachers. Oh my word, they are rock stars, and they're our heroes. They're my hero. I have an 8th grader, so I'm right in the middle of this as well as a parent. And our support staff at all the sites, along with our amazing bus drivers. They've been amazing. So that's
Yep.
just my thank you to all of them.
I'd have to echo that too, what you said, especially to our parents. I see Angela back in the back, who's one on part of that. They didn't know what they were getting into when they did this, and the parents and the students too just did an outstanding job of taking all the facts that we had together and coming up with a decision. I thought that the redistricting committees, when we have new elementaries, were bad. This was hard because there just wasn't that much to go on, and what we had was not pleasant to a lot of people. And there were some parents that had immunocompromised kids, and they have, it's like you said, to have empathy for all. It was very difficult. It was very
Yes.
difficult. And thank you, Angela, for your time on that committee too.
I want to add one thing, and Linus is standing here, but this year we have the Deer Creek app. On the Deer Creek app, on the right-hand side, it scrolls, and with a click, she continuously updates our newsletter and our data and our information. It's literally 2 clicks to get to everything that you need, from information for schools, school messenger messages, the updated newsletter that gets updated a minimum of once a week, to click in on students and their things, and then the parent programs. I cannot encourage you enough. This is the easiest and best way. When we talk about transparency and communication, with 2 clicks, you can know everything that we're working on and everything that we're doing. You can click into our Twitter, our Facebook. You can click into the foundation. So I highly recommend to all parents and any community member that you pick up the Deer Creek app that was designed this last year and have a one-stop shop for communication for Deer Creek schools. It's one of the best ways to keep up with everything that we're reporting on and sharing with the community. So, Linus, thank you for working on that. That was a big project. We had a lot of fun because the big deal was what's the background going to look like.
I know, it's black, and I apologize, Dr. Barnes, but
But it's really classic and it looks really
We're
good.
voting on you tonight.
I know you are.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right, you are. That is right, yes.
But again, to everyone that's watching, if there's one thing you need to do, it's to download the Deer Creek app, and at a one-stop shop, 2 clicks, and you can find out everything about Deer Creek.
Thanks,
Yes, and thank you, Linus, for the work you did for the vaccines
Yeah.
and getting that all
Yes,
arranged. It
yes,
went
great job.
perfectly.
Great job. Okay, next we F executive session. Do we need to be in executive session except to talk about Linus?
No.
No, okay. Okay, I is discussion of possible vote on the superintendent's recommendation concerning employment as listed on the personnel schedule. Do I have a motion?
I move to approve the superintendent's recommendation concerning employment as listed on the personnel schedule.
I'll second.
Lay, yes. Neves?
Yes.
Keen?
Yes.
Barnes?
Yes.
Bamford?
Yes.
Motion carried 5-0.
The next one is discussion and possible vote on the superintendent's recommendation to continue employment of certified employees as recommended on the personnel schedule for 21-22 school year. Do I have any discussion or motion?
Move for approval.
Second. Barnes?
Yes.
Lay, yes. Keen?
Yes.
Neves?
Yes.
Bamford?
Yes.
Motion carried 5-0.
And the last one is consideration of and vote on the recommendation by Superintendent Renette Tippins on the following 2020-2021 administrative team members for rehire for the 2021-2022 fiscal year beginning July 1, 2021. Specific assignments are to be determined. And they're listed 1 through 36. I don't have to read them all, do I?
No,
Okay, thank you.
I think everyone can breathe.
Any discussion or vote? Or motion, sorry.
I move to approve.
I'll second.
Neves?
Yes.
Bamford?
Yes.
Keen?
Yes.
Lay, yes. Barnes?
Yes.
Motion carried 5-0.
Adjournment.
Move for adjournment for cookies.
Second.
Barnes?
Yes.
Neves?
Yes.
Keen?
Yes.
Lay, yes. Bamford?
Yes.
Motion carried 5-0. The time is 8:01. Got that
So
right. today.
please make a stop, take a little bit of cookie home to feed someone, enjoy a bite.
Thank you for that.
Thank you, Dr. Barnes, for celebrating
Yes,
the
thank you.
incorporation of Deer Creek School's 100th anniversary.